Where there's a will, there's a way to deny your victims justice. At least that seemed to be Jeffrey Epstein's thinking in the days leading up to his mysterious death. The New York Post reporting that Epstein filed a will in the U.S. Virgin Islands just 2 days before reportedly hanging himself in a Manhattan federal jail cell. The document leaves all of the billionaire perv's property to the unnamed members of a trust fund, and that could make it much harder for his victims to sue for restitution. Epstein's last-minute legal legwork was revealed on the same day that a female accuser told reporters he should have faced justice over 20 years ago when he allegedly groped her during a photo shoot for Victoria's Secret. So why didn't he go to jail then, and how will his victims ever see restitution now? Here with me to discuss, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. He's been on both sides. Randy Zelin is here. Welcome back, Randy.
Thank you for having me back.
So all I keep thinking about is this guy had a lot of money and a lot of victims. He didn't have any kids. He had one brother that he was estranged from. So how can you best take the money that he had and give it to those victims whose lives he ruined?
It may very well be that the money has to first come back, because you talked about where there's a will. I think the stronger argument right now is where there's not a will and there's a trust, because apparently the assets were put into a trust before Mr. Epstein died.
What
Apparently,
does that do?
Maybe a couple of days. Well, technically, the trust, if it's irrevocable, it basically says it ain't my money anymore. And if it ain't my money anymore, then my creditors can't get what's not mine anymore. So assuming that it was put in an irrevocable trust with additional legal instruments, we have a will, but it's not really a will as I understand it. It's a pour-over will, which basically is a fancy way of saying, okay, I took all my assets and I got them away from me and I put them in an irrevocable trust, but if I forgot anything, then when I die, all of the stuff that I forgot, it literally pours in to the trust. So apparently, a couple of days before Mr. Epstein punched out his own ticket, he decided to make himself asset-proof.
Wow, that's so lame. And he must have seen the writing on the wall when these lawsuits started piling up that, you know, there were victims who were very believable, and some of them helped kind of put him away 10 years ago when he had that horrible deal from Alex Acosta. But so many more young women have come forward and said he did the exact same thing to me.
You have so many things going on here. You have this notion of he probably wasn't being overly generous and had pangs of, let me take care of my family. I'm not a psychiatrist, but odds are he probably also didn't have a last minute, I think I'm going to hang myself today.
Yeah.
It's probably something that was on his mind. It's probably not a coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidences, that he chose to do this accelerated estate planning. And that ain't easy when you have almost $600 million that you've got to make disappear. Even in Brewster's Millions, that old movie.
Oh, yes.
It took him a while
to
get rid of $20 million.
Oh, I was on the edge of my seat for the whole thing. All right. So if he talked to his lawyers and he created this will, was it a way for him to get out of any sort of responsibility that he would have? I guess I'm trying to think of a way of rephrasing this, because he obviously knew that he was going to hang himself. His lawyer said that he was killed. So if he was killed, is there some way that his assets are dispersed differently?
I don't think it necessarily matters. I think what's going to happen here, and the real interesting question is, where is this going to be litigated?
Yes.
The will was, or this pour-over will, trust documents were filed in the Virgin Islands, ostensibly for privacy purposes, because odds are not a lot of people are paying attention what's going on over in St. Thomas. Now, if the argument is it's going to be litigated, the creditors have to get notice because they're entitled to file claims against his estate. Are we doing that in the Virgin Islands?
So does it matter if he was killed versus hung himself? Does any of that matter? And does that affect his will or presumption of guilt?
It may actually, well, if we talk about suicide as the second most persuasive proof of consciousness of guilt, a confession being the most and the best, if he were killed, it probably would make it more difficult for the creditors to pull back in his assets, because the argument would be he didn't intend to do this.
So that's why his
anybody.
lawyers are doing that. I mean, that's why, you know, maybe Jeffrey Epstein crafted his own death in a certain way that would make it even harder for his victims to see their day in court and get any restitution. Because if they can make the claim that all of this was so weird and people were sleeping and so many people wanted to get to him, therefore he couldn't have been guilty, it just mires the whole thing and creates another mysterious.
But by the same token, if he wanted to take care of the trustees and the beneficiaries and the fiduciaries, they'd have to be nuts to start taking anything with these claims hovering out there, because they could personally be on the hook.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein is rotting in hell.